Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with David Blansfield, who's the Executive Vice President and Group Publisher for Northstar Meetings Group. We're going to talk about trends in the industry. We're going to talk about the launch of the meeting show in Singapore. And we're going to talk about the impact that AI will have on our industry. Thank you for listening and enjoy this conversation with David Blansfield. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I have the great pleasure to speak with David Blansfield. David is the Executive Vice President and Group Publisher of Northstar Meetings Group. Had tremendous career in our industry. He is in a position to look at everything that's going on. They just announced that they're going to organize the meeting show in Asia, so we're definitely going to talk about that as well. David, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for such a gracious welcome, Eric. It's my pleasure and honor to be your guest on your podcast.
And I've known you for many years, and only in preparing for this conversation, I realized that you speak some Japanese and you live there. So what is your journey and what happened with Asia and you and to get you to this point today?
Oh, well, geez, now we're going way, way back, Eric. You know, my ambition back in those days when I was graduating from college was to be a foreign correspondent for the New York Times or the Washington Post. But at the time that I graduated, I don't want to tell you what year it was because that will date me. The economy was in recession and jobs were not as plentiful as they are now. So I decided to embark on an adventure. I took a position teaching English in Tokyo, spent 2 years there, was able to kind of keep my hand in journalism and the media business by, working as a stringer and writing articles. And obviously I had a few clients on the English speaking side of things. One gentleman, fascinating guy, was a foreign correspondent for a major broadcaster in Tokyo. So was able to expand my mind with the folks that I met there, as well as travel, throughout Asia. And it provided me with an anchor of understanding of not just, doing business in that part of the world, but certainly opening my mind to differences in culture. And I would recommend that experience for any young professional today. But, coming back to the States after completing that mission, I embarked on a career that continued to involve an experience of any type of sort in Asia and internationally. I've always had a real passion for international business and international affairs. Launched some media businesses. Rather than working solely on the journalistic side of things, Eric, I focused more on the business side of things. So launched some financial magazines and then worked for larger companies to whom I sold the businesses. And I have generally worked in a cycle where have created something and then sold something. And I've had 4 or 5 different experiences like that where I was able to cultivate the entrepreneurial bug, launch something, have it acquired by a larger entity, have it grown and supported by a larger entity, and then kind of rinsed and repeated that kind of cycle. And that brought me to this current position here today, where I'm responsible for the meetings business for the Northstar Travel Group. Northstar Travel Group, for those who are not familiar with it, is the largest media marketing services company serving the travel industry. Travel is all we do, and we serve all aspects of travel, from travel agents to business travel and corporate procurement officers to meeting planners and those in the MICE industry, sports events organizers, as well as travel tech. We produce the largest travel tech show in the world in our Focusrite conference. So that has been a great opportunity for me, because in my previous positions, I've been an event organizer. Events have always been an important part of the media marketing services portfolio. So I am a buyer and have experience as a buyer and organizer of professional meetings and events. And now I get the real pleasure of being a media provider, an information services provider to folks who I know. Having been an event organizer, I can feel folks' pain and do my best with a terrific team, both in the U.S. and around the world, in providing content services, research, analysis, and ultimately, when we look at the world, we look at the world as a funnel, a traditional approach from a media and marketing perspective. We serve close to 500,000 event organizers and MICE service professionals in the U.S. and around the world. And ultimately, what we try to do is, through our understanding of what their interests and needs are, help those event organizers work together with service professionals who are specifically, focused on their unique needs. So it's a process by understanding what the buy side wants, by understanding what the sell side needs, we try to, ultimately at the end of the day, bring both of those sides of the coin to the bottom of our funnel, where we can introduce them to each other and help them consummate and transact new business.
Makes total sense. And all the experience that you had, you have several lives. So you don't look 150. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've been around, my friend.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good to be able to say that. You've worked in different part of the world, and you just mentioned that you're serving 500,000 people around the world. Do you see any major difference? What is similar and what is different when you are addressing people in different countries compared to the US?
Well, what is similar, and this similarity has really been driven home as a result of the pandemic and our very robust recovery coming out of the pandemic. Not only the importance of face-to-face, and this has been underlined, Eric, through research and just the empirical evidence that we see with a continued boom in face-to-face. Human interaction is really, really important, and none more so, I think, than in international affairs and international business. And around the world, it's been made very plain just how important face-to-face experience is to organizations of all sizes and types, and how that endures. Even with the prognostications that we had about technology, kind of replacing the face-to-face experience, and the economy and inflation and costs, and how that would, how organizations were trying to rationalize travel and trying to rationalize meetings. It's completely the opposite with demand now through the roof, with everyone understanding just how effective and how important the face-to-face experience is, and that is underlined, I think, when you're traveling across border and you're dealing with different cultures and different customs. I just came back from Asia. In fact, I'm still recovering from the jet lag. Just got back on Saturday from an event, our largest event ever in Singapore. It's called Meetings and Conventions Asia Connections, where we bring buyers and sellers together. We had buyers and suppliers from all over the world, and just so gratifying to have buyers from Turkey, mixing with buyers from Korea and buyers from China and buyers from Indonesia and buyers from Malaysia, and suppliers from those entities too, and the delight that they have in seeing what's available to them. And we showcased Singapore obviously during this trip because the meeting was being held there. And that's one of the benefits of the face-to-face experiences that we produce, is that we really try to showcase the destinations and the venues where where we produce them, and just again the joy that you witness in terms of just the folks meeting together and being together with each other, and the enthusiasm that they have for the events that they're looking to produce.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really gratifying when you're able to bear witness to that.
Yep, absolutely. I remember I wrote a thesis on cultural differences in business when I graduated, just like you some years ago. And one of the things I remember is that in Asia, losing face is very bad. So do you train your team in terms of cultural differences? Is there any special approach to that, just, to avoid mistakes, or sometimes we might be very direct in the US? Is there any specific approach that you have with the team, or when you work in those different countries?
Well, my personal approach is always to, tread very gently. And I've benefited from being able to associate both in my current position and in previous positions with folks who were either very experienced in those cultures or were born and raised in those cultures. So, I was accompanied during this trip by, full-time staff based in Singapore, and we have representatives in other parts of Asia who are very helpful, obviously, to me in terms of making introductions to their clients, and coaching me along in terms of the idiosyncrasies that need to be attended to during those meetings. But it's very stereotypical to say losing face and things of that nature. Essentially, I try to just be listen before speaking. That's always a helpful a bit of advice, and and not to make any pronouncements or decisions without consulting those who know more than I do. So we have a tendency in the States in particular to be very forthright and somewhat aggressive from a business perspective. And Asia or Europe or Latin America, I always try to turn the volume down a little bit and take a bit of a slower approach, and consult with those who know better. Before.
Well, that it made me think of something that actually happened recently. I was in a meeting. I was in a Zoom meeting with people in Belgium, a foundation that I have the pleasure of serving on the board, and there were two Americans that actually flew to Belgium that were in the room, and around the table in Belgium there were people from Belgium, but also from France. And I was on the Zoom, and a friend who's actually French but living in Brussels said something. And then it was my turn to speak. And I said, well, first of all, it pains me to say it's very hurtful to let you know, as a Belgian from origin from Belgium, that I agree with the French guy. So everybody around the table started laughing, and I could see the face of the two people from the US. Well, they didn't know how to react, because the political correctness, thank God, is not as developed over there. And you would hear people from one European country to another making fun of each other. But anyway, that brings me to the UK, to the meeting show. How does that happen? When was the process, the decision making to say, okay, we're now going to take the meeting show to Asia? Where does that fit into your portfolio? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, the meeting show is a business that we acquired. Northstar acquired the meeting show from Centaur PLC 5 years ago. Obviously, we've had a pandemic in between now and then. But we've invested heavily in the meeting show and the meeting show brand. Really, really solid people there, and we've evolved the meeting show to be quite a all-encompassing experience from a travel perspective. Because together with the meeting show, we co-locate our business travel show, our travel technology show, and our sports travel an event show called Teams Europe. So, huge show, 7,000 attendees this year, largest show ever, close to 1,000 exhibitors. And we've always, Northstar has always wanted, and I've always personally wanted to launch a major event, a major exhibition somewhere in Asia. Prior to the pandemic, and you know this more than anyone, Eric, as I'm sure our listeners do, the calendar is very crowded. The calendar is very crowded for industry events. We've got an alphabet soup of associations. You've got, other major players who do either MICE industry shows or travel shows with a MICE component. So there was never a slot. There was never an opening, for us. And we've expressed this ambition to several destinations in Asia for us to do what we've done in London in Asia, somewhere in Asia, where we would, kind of plant a MICE industry flag, but with the objective to have that bloom into a larger travel event opportunity. Coming out of the pandemic, and this was kind of right before the meeting show in London in June. In fact, this was on the show floor at IMEX Frankfurt, where it was communicated to us that a slot might exist in Singapore. And would we be interested in discussing whether or not we would be willing to take that slot? And, overwhelmingly, I got on my laptop, I Zoomed with the CEO of our company, and I just basically said, if we want to take this slot, we need to take this slot. Gave me the thumbs up, so essentially we consummated a deal on the show floor at IMEX to pursue the meeting show Asia Pacific in April of 2024. I just returned from Singapore, where we had an official signing ceremony for this event, which will be held at Marina Bay Sands, which is a showcase, obviously, venue for the meetings industry. So the moon and the stars have just basically come together, Eric, for us to produce this event next April. Now, granted, the pipeline here is pretty tight. The window is very tight. In a perfect world, we would like to have given us a little bit more time to plan and produce this event. But we have a really, really terrific staff in Singapore who are more than capable of executing. In fact, the event director for Meeting Show Asia Pacific has extensive experience in exhibition planning and production, but we still have to obviously staff. So one of the responsibilities that I had over there was interviewing some candidates for some new positions. So we are hiring in Singapore. So we're bringing jobs to Singapore, and we're planning on bringing over 150 hosted buyers for our inaugural event. And we're actively engaged right now and working with several destinations and hoteliers to provide them with premium space at the show. In addition, we've had meetings with every major industry association, from MPI to ICA to PCMA. It's a long list, as you know. And, yes. We plan for it to be an open tent. We want all of these associations to be able to have a presence with us. And in fact, the timing is really good because, the pandemic put a lot of, world, global expansion plans, particularly expansion plans in Asia, on hold for a lot of these associations. So it's going to be an opportunity for all of us, I think, to come together in a really meaningful way in Asia at a time when, business is just booming there. So that was one of the key takeaways from this last trip, is that, the business is for all types of, meetings and events, associations, exhibition organizers. It's taken a while for the recovery to take hold in Asia. You've seen this wave of, the US first, mm-hmm. Europe, and now Asia. But travel's back, and the MICE industry is looking very, very strong going forward. So, we think April is the perfect time for our launch as well.
Well, good luck. That's what's wonderful, great news. Are you planning to do like a copy paste of the meeting show in London, or there's different elements to it?
Copy paste is a good description, Eric. Yes, we're gonna use that model for the meeting show Asia Pacific. We really like the meeting show brand. We really like the approach that we've taken. It works for us, and we think from a business perspective, the extension of the brand to Asia will also enhance the brand in the UK and Europe. So yes, we want to maintain the brand integrity. We want the meeting show to produce a similar, if not even better, experience than the experience our buyers and suppliers who participate in the meeting show UK have had. So yes, we definitely plan on ensuring that the return on time, return on investment that our stakeholders get from the meeting show is their experience at the meeting show Asia Pacific, and that it continues to enhance each other as we develop the brands going forward.
Wonderful. And you said you were hiring people. Do you see any different challenges in hiring people in Singapore or in Asia as you see here in the US?
If you know anybody, please pass them along, Eric, you or any of our listeners. Yeah, it's hiring is a challenge there as it is everywhere. So finding good people and being able to bring them on board is not an easy thing to do. We have the benefit, though, of having a culture at Northstar where once you join, you never leave. Turnover is very low at our company, and we have some people on our staff who have been with us for over 30 years.
Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren and Diane DiMaggio, who's a legend, in this industry. So yeah, we've got several folks I can count them on my hands and my feet who have been with us for a long, long time. And that's just not in my area. When you look at the larger Northstar and particularly the retail side of the business, Travel Weekly, for example, I mean, there are some folks who Arnie Weissman is a legend. In his own time, and obviously it's decades that these folks have been with Northstar and have been immersed in the travel industry. So I think that those are characteristics that folks who want to get in the travel industry, and Eric, who wouldn't want to get into the travel industry. It's not a very difficult industry in which to attract talent, but we don't have the compensation that you might get at a tech company, for example. So there are some trade-offs when you work for an organization like ours. But for those who love the travel industry and want to work in a dynamic and creative and entrepreneurial environment, there's no better place than Northstar. So
wonderful. You say that when you join, you don't leave. It's almost like a threat.
Yeah. No. Well, it's not a threat, believe me. It's a.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It's
you know me. David, you're in an ideal position to look at what's going on in the industry. I saw you present as well in the past about trends and the survey you're doing. I'd love to finish this conversation today to speak about AI and what other things that you're seeing. But first of all, everybody's saying it, and rightly so, I believe, that AI is completely going to change, it's changing every industry. How is this affecting and changing the way you do business in terms of events on one hand, and in terms of publishing on the other hand?
Well, we've been actively engaged in reporting on AI. We've taken a real strong interest in Project Spark, PCMA's initiative specific to the event industry. And, we've been playing with Chat GPT ever since its launch. And we've been experimenting at Northstar, first in terms of content production. So yes, we do use this tool, and we use it regularly do we produce content that's only generated through AI? No. The technology is obviously in need of curation, and that's encouraging to us, and it's encouraging to our editors, who immediately feared for their lives when the power of these tools became readily apparent to them. So yes, we use the technology from a content production perspective. We are using the technology to help us understand the needs and interests of our audience even further. So yes, we are relatively advanced in terms of how we use traditional tools, traditional SEO tools, to understand the needs and interests of those who use our digital products. And we are also experimenting with ways in which to optimize our sites, our databases. We have the world's largest hotel database, Northstar does, a hotel travel index. And we utilize that database on the Northstar Meetings Group websites. We have the largest database of hotels and venues with meetings facilities, and we're using AI tools to help us and help our users be able to find the venues that they need more readily. So that is a process that's ongoing now. But we've been very active in terms of presenting to the planner universe, in particularly, how they can use these AI tools to help them streamline their processes and to help them move from more of a task-oriented approach to more of a strategic approach, which I think is absolutely necessary now. As we always have to raise the bar on our event experiences to ensure that our stakeholders are maximizing the investment of their time in the face-to-face experiences that we're offering. So just during this last trip I had to Singapore, I moderated a panel discussion on AI with a fascinating group of technology developers and users. And just basically the takeaway was that AI is going to make our events better, and that human interaction is going to be more important than ever as a result of this technology. So again, this is good news for the event industry, because again, when you look at these trends, when you look at the fact that event organizers and stakeholders recognize that the return on their events are far greater than they had anticipated prior to the pandemic. When you look at the trends from a remote workforce perspective, and the fact that now meetings are more important than ever, just because face-to-face experience that people used to get at their workplaces are no more.
Totally.
And then you've got these AI tools where you can now enhance the actual experience.
Can you give an example of enhancing the experience with AI?
Well, at Marina Bay Sands, and this was quite interesting because they now have the technology to be able to perceive when folks in the audience are losing interest.
Wow.
And that communication can be communicated on a real-time basis to the folks on stage. So, as well as I do that, a PowerPoint presentation, just like every PowerPoint presentation that you've heard ever since the beginning, ever since Microsoft developed, that technology. After the first couple of minutes, and I'm showing my phone here. After the first couple of minutes, if you're not aware of the fact that people aren't paying attention to you, you need to be. Because you really got to work to engage. And this is the thing that I love about TED Talks, is that they ensure that if you're going to get up on their stage, you're going to keep people's attention for the duration of your presentation. So this is just one example of how AI tools can give you a little kick in the pants in terms of, wait a minute, 50% of your audience is now not even paying attention to you. Be aware of that and address your audience in a fashion that's going to grab their attention. So
amazing. Now, one of the growing segment has been for years, and if I look at the report, say in 2027, the majority of the workforce will be the gig economy. Going back to our industry and business owners in the industry, so that growing third party, how would you advise business owners to use AI? Is it in doing tasks that they should not be doing anymore and they automated it? How can they use AI to basically, as you say, focus on the strategy and the engagement part with the customer and their team?
Yes, on the first question, most definitely. So many opportunities to use these tools to help streamline and make more efficient administrative tasks. The other element I think that is very, very important to business owners is the use of AI to understand the the interests and the needs of your clients and prospects. And I think that's where curation comes into play, and being able to understand how a hotelier would understand what the needs might be or interests might be of a guest prior to that guest joining. Does the guest like to does the guest want a key, or will the guest be fine with a digital key? Is the guest kosher? Is the guest vegan? Is all of the various elements of the demographics and the personae that they're going to be serving, so that each experience can be customized to that particular attendee. It was shared during this panel that we just conducted that your customers are first impressions are everything, and when a front desk folks are able to say in a few words what the anticipated needs are of that particular customer, you walk away from that experience saying, wow, I'm special. This is going to be expected of folks going forward. So I think it would behoove everyone to understand how they can use these tools to know their clients better and to serve their clients better.
Wonderful. Besides AI, any other trends, any other new things that you've seen that we should be aware of?
Well, I again see the fact that the industry continues to feel really optimistic. We have a piece of research in the field right now, Eric, giving some advanced stats on what's going on in the market today. Continued optimism for the industry, the expectation that budgets for next year are going to grow pretty considerably, between 10 and 15%. So that's the very robust, I think, expectation that organizers know that they're going to have to spend more to continue to maintain the quality of services that they're providing. And many are hiring. Close to 40% of the meeting planners that we are currently polling say that they're looking to add staff in 2024. So this continues to, I think, bode really well, for the industry. And in terms of, these AI tools, many are currently, playing with them, but many admit that they need more help in understanding how to use these tools. So we at Northstar, and I'm sure many associations, should recognize that well over half of all planners want to learn more about these tools and how they can be using them. And I think that bodes well, again, I think for us, because meeting planners are open to the idea that AI can help them and not hurt them.
Absolutely.
So those are major trends that we're currently looking at. There's been a lot talked about also about the weaponization of travel, and that continues to be an important issue. We monitor every we send out email newsletters every day, Eric, and it continues to astonish me at how much interest is being put towards things that are happening in different parts of the United States in particular. So, we see many planners continue to maintain strong interest in what's happening in different parts of the country related to laws that might make it difficult for planners to bring their stakeholders to various places. So that continues to be important. So the education of how planners can work with their stakeholders to educate them on how travel boycotts just don't help, they hurt the cause, as it might relate to that. So we continue to cover that trend very, very closely. And then sustainability and climate change. The U.S. is quite behind Europe and Asia in particular in terms of really, making serious efforts to make their carbon footprints more sustainable over time. We were supposed to be doing an event in Maui next week. And so when you see the horrific impact that has had on that community, and it just brings it home, Eric, as to just how we're really, really late to the game to address climate change in serious and significant ways. And as an industry, we really need to step up. And we're seeing a demographic shift in the composition of our industry. Younger and more engaged professionals are coming into the industry, and they're over time we're going to see a much greater emphasis being placed on sustainability and the hospitality industry's commitment to sustainability. So that's something that we will stay close on. This week we're offering our sustainability course, an online course. Record numbers of folks are participating in that event. Not nearly enough, but it's important to continue to offer those kinds of services. So, and we will continue to cover, and we'll continue to advocate for sustainability as well.
Awesome. No, I actually was recently in Hawaii on Oahu, which is totally fine. And speaking with people in Maui, obviously Laha'i it's a disaster. And the rest of the island is still very well. That's something I learned years ago. I had a friend, Hilmar Totemacher in Namibia. You might know him. We're discussing at the trade show, and there was it's not eruption, the word I'm looking at, an outbreak. That's the right word in English. The outbreak of Ebola in Sierra Leone in Liberia, which is northwest of Africa. And he told me that he had a client from the Netherlands calling him and said, Elmar, should I be worried about Ebola because we're supposed to come to Namibia? And he said, oh yeah, you should absolutely be worried. And she went, really? Oh yes, he said, you're much closer to the outbreak than I am in the south of Africa. And so the perception that sometimes people in our industry have, I would say, do the research and see really what's going on. And actually, even when you have a disaster striking, that's where destination that actually living on tourism and meetings need to be supported. So I thought it was fascinating when you look at it. David, thank you so much for sharing all those insights. It's always a pleasure listening to you. My last question for today: when we meet in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
What are we going to be celebrating? We're going to be celebrating the continued vitality of our industry. That's what we'll be celebrating, Eric. I do think meetings and events play a critical role in bringing people and cultures together. We remain very optimistic for our present and future, and believe that events will continue to make a significant impact on the world in which we live. So for that, we toast, my friend.
Wonderful.
And thank you for all you do. We really appreciate your continued advocacy for the industry, Eric. and for your continued enthusiastic support for everything that we do here at Northstar. So much obliged to you, Eric.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in person very soon.
As do I. Thanks, Eric.
David, thank you so much for sharing all these insights and a preview of the survey you're doing in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, www.eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation and learned something, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.